I'm Victoria Bond and I am the CEO of 10 Space, and everything that we do at 10 Space is all around employee engagement and employee experience. So the work that we do at 10 Space, we have a platform that captures anonymous employee feedback, and the work that we do is about asking employees for the right feedback at the right time, asking the right questions, and then using that to build up culture, build up engagement, build up performance in organisations. And we do a lot of work in employee engagement. We then do a lot of work in employee experience, and I'll as we go through, I'll build on what the difference is of that for us. My background's in HR, so I've kind of spent my my working life kind of doing around employee engagement and employee experience. So this is the first part of two webinars, actually, all around kind of next level employee engagement. So today, what we're going to be focusing on is employee experience, and like I said, I'll kind of take you through what that means for us at 10 Space, the work that we do in that area, and kind of hopefully give you some ideas around some of the ways that you can further the work that you do around employee experience, or kind of start some work on employee experience. Next week's webinar, which is a continuation, is around EVP and using employee experience to contribute to your EVP contributing to your employee experience and your employee engagement, and kind of vice versa. But also looking at the future of work. So what's next for employee engagement? How do we kind of stay ahead in the marketplace, and how do we really make sure that we can kind of maintain that competitive advantage if we feel like we're in a really great place for employee engagement? So some of you on the call might be joining thinking, yeah, we're in an all right place for employee engagement, but we're not where we want to be. There's tons of stuff in here for you if that's your position. Some of you, others of you, might be sat here thinking, we're in an awesome place with our employee engagement. We've done some great work, or I'm really proud of where we're at. We want to know what's next, and what have you got for us? And again, we've got loads of stuff in terms of kind of what's next, and how can we help you take employee engagement to the next level, and what's next, I guess. Like I say, this webinar, what we're going to be really focusing on is that next level employee engagement is actually about delving into some more of the detail and delving into that kind of employee experience and that world. We'll talk about employee journeys and what those look like, and how we kind of have a look at employee journeys and how you can do that as well, and to kind of build up overall employee engagement. So I guess why would we bother? I think I think a lot of the work that we do around employee engagement, one is to create a kind of, often say employee engagement, whilst it has really great outcomes in terms of retention or in terms of employee and organisational performance, that we still, a great engagement and great culture is a great outcome on its own, if you like. However, a lot of the time, the stuff that we're really focusing on is the thing that creates us the most pain, which is around retention and the cost of retention and employees leaving the organisation. And I've kind of put a stat up there around poor retention cost businesses around £42 billion every year. I read a recent article that talks about when an employee leaves an organisation, the cost of that can be upwards of kind of £30,000, which is kind of eye-watering. You could kind of recruit a new person in some roles for that kind of money. And so everything that we can do, I guess, from a HR perspective, to really kind of optimise what we're doing for employee engagement, to really try and lock in our talent, that should be our focus, really. And because the cost benefit analysis is there. So a lot of the work that we do is kind of around retention. This other stat, I kind of share this because this really gets to the heart of that kind of competitive advantage piece that I mentioned earlier. So 39% of HR leaders are harnessing the COVID crisis to reshape and reprioritise their company's talent agenda. So for me, what happened during COVID, and I know we're all like, you know, it was a while ago, but actually I really think that something really fundamentally shifted in the kind of world of work, where a lot of organisations really started to open their eyes to the importance of employee engagement, the importance of employee experience, and what that can translate to in terms of cash and retention and talent. And, you know, I've put this kind of stat up here to kind of show that actually there's a good chunk of HR leaders who are really starting to focus in on this now to really gain that competitive advantage when it comes to talent. And so the more work that we can do in this area, the more focus that we can do in this area, rather than just kind of sitting back and hoping that this is engagement and great experience will build itself, the more proactive that we can be, the more kind of chance we give ourselves when it comes to talent attraction, talent retention, and like I say, really building that competitive advantage. So just before I get into kind of employee experience and employee journeys and what that kind of means for us at TenSpace, a bit of a kind of an overview about how we look at employee engagement in general and the work that we do in that area. So this is our TenSpace employee engagement model. We break employee engagement into 4 areas. So we talk about connection. And connection is often when we'll kind of explore with employees how they feel about their connection to their organisation, how they feel like the vision, mission, values and goals are clear, for example, whether there's a clear voice in the organisation, whether communication's great in the organisation, if they feel that they can contribute to the goals of the organisation, and they're really clear on that. You know, that future direction of travel, are employees really connected into your organisation and where you're heading. Then in leadership will explore your relationships with your people leaders. So, you know, sometimes it can be, you know, are they fair? Other times it's, are they great coaches? Are they bringing out the best in you? Are they bringing out the best in the teams? And really kind of exploring leadership in general. From a wellbeing perspective, this is about feeling safe and secure and supported in the workplace, both physically and psychologically. So diversity and inclusion might sit in here, for example, because that's about psychological safety in the workplace. But it's also, you know, it's questions that we might ask employees to explore. And here is, you know, does this feel like an employee first organisation? For example, that's a really nice question that can kind of draw things out in the surveys that we do. And then fulfillment, that's about career development, it's about work-life balance, it's about pride in the workplace, it's about challenge in the workplace, it's about how personally fulfilled you are with the role and the organisation. So the work that we do in this area tends to be kind of surveying whole organisations or whole teams to look and pull out big trends in employee engagement. So we can identify if there's an issue with communication across the whole organisation or within a team, or whether there's a leadership gap, or, you know, whether there's an issue with the support that an employee might get around mental health, or, you know, so we can go into some detail, but we do a lot of work around general employee engagement in the organisation. And so I guess how would you know then if you were ready for the next level and you wanted to kind of really focus on employee next level employee engagement, which we would say is about employee experience? So the best way to kind of think about this is, the way that we think about it is employee engagement is the outcome of really great employee experiences. And in TenSpace, what we do is we explore something called employee journeys. And employee journeys is like an individual journey that an employee might go on, and your experience across your time at an organisation is built up of a number of employee journeys. So you will have a recruitment journey, for example, you'll have an onboarding journey, you might have a probationary journey, you might have a talent development journey, you might have a return from maternity journey, for example. All of those journeys make up your experience that then makes up employee engagement, if that makes sense. So that next level employee engagement work that we do tends to be on employee experience and employee journeys, and really kind of getting geeky and detailed around what are those experiences that employees are having in your organisation. Are they great? And you know, where can we optimize those so that when they're all added in together, we're really supercharging employee experience and employee engagement. So you might know that you are ready to kind of focus on employee experience if maybe you've got you already have a really great employee engagement strategy in place and you're wondering what's next. Your feedback surveys are returning really solid scores and you need an additional kind of edge that additional competitive advantage. Like I say, you want to really level up that your employee engagement strategy. Your current engagement strategy just isn't hitting the mark anymore, and you kind of, what's next? We need to kind of switch this up. Or your ambition is to create a really incredible workplace both now and in the future, and you kind of want to kind of go and build that from the detail upwards. The other one that's kind of hidden in here is we also do employee journey work and employee experience work where there's a real issue in something in an organisation. So, for example, we are doing a piece of work with an organisation at the moment on their onboarding process, where they've got an early turnover issue, and we're looking at kind of mapping that through and following an employee through their employee journey in the early stages of their employment, so that we can understand what's happening, what's going wrong with that process. So the kind of employee journeys and employee experience and can be used to kind of fix stuff that's going wrong, but it can also be used to really optimize and really supercharge things, and to really kind of build on things when you want to take things to the next level. And I guess, you know, why does that matter then? You know, why does it matter in terms of employee experience, and why we kind of trying so hard? A bit of a reminder, really. So we've already talked about retention. We've talked about that high cost of recruitment. We've really talked about, you know, that it makes sense to focus on retention rather than recruitment. You know, that engagement, those employee experience of, like I say, the kind of the building blocks that build up to employee engagement. And, you know, from engagement, we get more committed people in their work. We get people who are more willing to contribute to the success of the organisation, really feeling a sense of purpose and fulfilment. And all of those things are a really great outcome on their own, like I say. Now, by focusing on employee experience, we can often uncover really key points around performance. So when we can get into some real detail around the journeys and the experiences that our employees are having, and often kind of find and unlock higher performance. So that might be something that we discover in the data and insights that is common, that picture sales team, for example. If we followed a sales team in their employee journey, you know, how can we, what can we kind of find in the data and the insight and the feedback that gives us that can help us to understand what's holding that team back or pushing them forwards? If we understand how we can really get under the skin of a high performing team, how can we replicate that in other teams? What is it that works for them? So that kind of thing can be really useful and really kind of unlocking higher performance in an organisation. Can also be really important when it comes to reputation. So there's always going to be kind of key points that really matter when it comes to employer reputation, when it comes to employee experiences. That's usually recruitment, onboarding and exit. That's when you'll find that most employees are kind of speaking externally about their organisation, and that's when you can kind of find that a reputation is built or otherwise. But it's also going to be about every experience that they have, and you know, it can be really kind of important, those employees' experiences that you have, to your general reputation in the marketplace. That then feeds into your EVP, which can impact on your ability to bring talent in, to retain talent in the organisation. So, you know, focusing on employee experience kind of really does matter. Okay, so let me give you an example of some of how we would start to explore an employee journey or an employee experience. So this example is onboarding, because this is quite often one that we get asked about. So we might what we'll do is we'll set up a series of surveys that go out to the employees at regular touch points during their journey, during their onboarding journey. And that allows us to build up a really rich picture over time. So let me kind of talk you through that. So in week one, at the end of week one, for example, we might check in with their employee and we might kind of say, right, how was week one? You know, how did that compare to your recruitment process? Did it meet your expectations? How do you feel going into next week? And overall, how engaged do you feel at this point in your journey? And often that kind of how engaged do you feel will often use the EMPS question, which is around, would you recommend this is a great place to work? And what that does is it can give us some great data points, but it can also give us some really, if we're asking employees around kind of open-ended questions as well, and give us some really great insight about week one. How have they hit the ground in the initial kind of stages of their employment? How does it feel? And how are we kind of moving forward? Then we might go back out again after the first month, for example, and we might ask them things like, you know, do you feel like you have everything that you need to succeed? Are you clear on the vision and the mission and the values of the organisation? Are your expectations being met? How do you feel going into the next month? Overall, how engaged do you feel at this point in your journey? So again, we've got that second data point of how engaged you feel at this point in your journey, so we can understand the difference between week one and week 6. But we've also got some really great other additional kind of feedback coming in. And if we add some segmentation into that, so when we're working with large sets of data, you know, we can have a look at, and we can see that Salford are just not getting the message across about vision, missions, values and goals by the end of week 6, whereas Colchester do an incredible job of it. And what does that mean in terms of, you know, how can we kind of optimize those processes? What does the right answer look like? Hopefully you can start to see how this data kind of builds up. So at the end of week 12, do you have all the training and support that you need to succeed? Do you have clear personal goals and objectives? You know, how do you feel going into the next 6 months? And overall, how engaged do you feel at this point in your journey? So we've got another data point. We've also got some awesome additional employee feedback coming through. And then maybe we might go out again at 6 months and talk about their progression, for example. So how can we help you continue to deliver in your role? Are you clear on what you can do to progress your career? Do you see yourself in the organisation in 2 years' time? How do you feel going into the next 6 months? You know, overall, how engaged do you feel at this point in your journey? So what this does is it gives us really great data. Like I say, you know, we can really see where engagement's building and dropping as we go through this process, so that we can really start to optimize it. We can really say, oh, you know what, around the 3-month mark, something happens. We need some kind of intervention because engagement drops at this point. We're at risk of losing some of our talent. Our kind of employee experience isn't optimized at that point. What's the data telling us? What's the feedback telling us? How can we improve that? And we can really start to kind of optimize those processes. So some of the examples of how we might do that are really building up kind of engagement journey by journey. So maybe tracking and following your top talent as they move through a leadership program. One of the really cool things about doing this, and one of the ways that we've been using this, is to use this as a way to demonstrate return on investment of where we've made an investment in something. So if we've got a leadership program that we spent money on and our leaders are taking time out, what we can do is we can kind of set up a series of surveys in that way, and we can check in with them on a regular basis to understand, you know, what's landing, what isn't, what do we need to know about the programme, but also how is your engagement building and falling as you go through this programme. With the aim that by the end of the programme, we'll have built engagement in that population. And then that's a really great measure that we can measure success that we can use to say, we've built engagement, that's really great return on investment for us, because we might have locked in our talent and those people that went through that leadership programme for longer. You know, and then you can maybe even translate that across your retention figures of those individuals. It gives us some really great ROI data. Number two, maybe understanding the experiences of those who identify as neurodivergent in the organisation. So can we pull those people out as maybe a focus group? We really want to understand how it feels to be neurodivergent in our organisation, so we can make sure that we're being really inclusive and creating a really sense of belonging in our organisation. Let's do a series where we start to understand your journey in our organisation. Mentioned it earlier, following the journey back from maternity returners as they integrate back into the workplace. There are ways that we can optimise that journey so that we can support those returners, so that we can beat the odds in terms of their our employee retention stats coming back from maternity. And can we help them to kind of supercharge their own performance in a quick way by our optimising our journeys. Understanding the impact of the benefits package across different demographics in the workplace. So for this one, we might set up a focus group, for example, that we follow over quite a long period of time, where we'll send somebody a survey we'll send a group a survey that kind of tracks benefits packages, for example, over a period of time. And so it's a really great way of kind of going, oh, you know what, we need to talk. Pensions isn't landing at the moment, we need to do some more work in this area. And again, you can kind of see how, as an employee journey from that perspective, having that regular kind of inflow of data would really help. Tracking the impact of a key wellbeing initiative that was introduced across the workplace. Again, this is just kind of great ROI data. If we've introduced something, we spent money on something, we spent time on something, can we follow that and make sure that it landed really well? And can we understand how we've impacted on the employee journey that way? And then tracking the experience of hybrid workers as they move through the organisation. And you know, I think a number of organisations are still getting used to that kind of hybrid working. So is there regular data that we can pull in from their experiences that we can make sure that we're really creating a great culture and a great experience around hybrid working in the organisation? Okay. So hopefully I've kind of given you an overview then of how you can kind of get into some real data and some real deep dive, and how you can use that to really supercharge employee engagement and take that to the next level then. So a couple of key takeaways then. So really starting to focus on all elements of employee experience. Don't do it all at once. You will absolutely overwhelm yourself, but really kind of starting to really go through or those journeys that really matter in your organisation, seeing where you can really start to optimise those. Using employee feedback surveys to do that, you know, that data is really useful, and the insight that you'll get from those surveys will be really useful, and using that to kind of really stay informed. If you want to, using that to get clarity on ROI and return on investment of things that you are doing, using that building an engagement, build up of engagement on a micro level of particular journeys or particular populations to deliver, to prove return on investment of some of the work that you're doing. And then gathering insights on a regular basis. And if you come on other webinars, or you ever hear me kind of talking, I will bang on about really regularly taking employee feedback and employee and doing surveys on a regular basis, not just an annual process, but really making sure you have that regular flow of data coming in and that regular flow of insight coming in, so that you can really understand what's going on at any particular point in your organisation, and you can stay ahead of the trends that are happening. Okay, so some ways for you to keep in touch then. That's our website, that's my email address. If you would like to hear some more from me, then you can always find me on HR Directors Podcast, and yeah, you can find me there. So part 2 then, join us for part 2. It's same time next week. Like I say, we'll be talking about EVP, we'll be talking about the future of work and what the future of employee engagement does look like or will look like. I think I'm just going to go and check the chat now, but I think one of my lovely team might have put the sign up link in there, and we'll write out to you afterwards anyway, just as with a link so that you can sign up for the next webinar. But and then I guess if there's anybody who would like to talk to us about any of the work that we've done here, or how we might be able to help you with employee engagement, employee experience, just please give us a shout. And I've managed miraculously to give us a couple of minutes at the end of the to ask any questions. So if anybody has any questions, I know that there was a couple that were sent in that one of my team's going to ask as well. But if anybody else has got any questions, give me a shout, and I'll have a sneaky look at the chat now. Thank you very much.
Hi, yeah. So if we could just start with some that were sent in. So the first one is, can you start with employee experience rather than general engagement?
I think you can. I would usually start with employee engagement, because I think employee engagement gives you the kind of the trends across the entire organization and the trends across the team, for example. But you definitely can start with the experience. Would definitely start with the experience, like I say, when you've got a problem maybe and you want to kind of explore a problem. So yeah, it is possible, but sometimes dipping into the detail is not the right thing to do before you've kind of done that general overview. Yeah.
Thanks. And you talked about employee journeys in the webinar. So in terms of employee journeys, where do you think is the best place to start?
Yeah, so always start where you think you might have the pain points, so if you've got any pain points, start there. So often for some reason that's around onboarding for people, or it's around a talent development program. If not, maybe just start at the beginning and kind of work your way through the employee life cycle. If there aren't any pain points, or try and think about what are the ones that will really kind of make the biggest impact and really help, or where's that place that return on investment is going to be really important for me, and start there.
Yeah, and so if I'm interested in like getting started with this and taking employee engagement to the next level, what do you think is the next step?
Okay. So if you have already got an employee survey and you've got feedback, go and dig that out and go and have a look at what people are already telling you. Go and have a look at your retention stats. Go and have a look at any other kind of data and stuff that in your organisation that will lead you to thinking about where a good place to start would be. Of course, call 10 space and we will kind of help you with this stuff, but go and have a look for the data that you've already got in your organization and see if you can start to kind of apply that employee experience lens over it, and kind of go and start there, I guess.